From India to USA, getting there. If you're considering emigrating to the USA, it's essential to understand the difficulties for USA immigration in the case of Indian immigrants. In a future video, we will analyze the distribution of Indian citizen groups across the US territory. Subscribe to our channel and leave us a like to be notified of our future publication. In this video, we will talk about how does discrimination in India affect the decision to immigrate to the United States? How is the journey of Indian immigrants from India to the United States organized? What role do smuggling networks play in Indian migration? Additional information about crossing from Canada. What impact does discrimination in India have on the mindset of immigrants? Let's start. How does discrimination in India affect the decision to immigrate to the United States? Discrimination in India significantly affects the decision to immigrate to the United States for many Indian citizens. Religious persecution. Religious minorities, especially Muslims and Christians, face increasing violence and discrimination in India. This has led many to seek asylum in the US to escape persecution. Discrimination against the LGBTQ+ community. People like Jashanpreet Singh flee violence and harassment because of their sexual orientation. Same-sex marriage remains illegal in India, driving immigration. Caste discrimination. Low caste Hindus also seek refuge in the US due to systemic discrimination. Political climate. The rise of discriminatory policies such as the Citizenship Amendment Act has heightened the sense of insecurity among minorities. Lack of legal protection. Many feel they cannot turn to legal or government institutions to protect their rights. Limited opportunities. Discrimination affects access to education and employment, motivating the search for better opportunities in the US. These factors have contributed to the significant increase in Indians crossing the US-Mexico border, reaching a record number of 16,290 in 2022. How is the journey of Indian immigrants from India to the United States organized? The journey of Indian immigrants to the United States is usually organized as follows. Starting in India, the process begins with travel agents in India who offer door-to-door smuggling services. These agents charge high fees, which can exceed $50,000 per person. Southern route. Many migrants first fly to South American countries such as Ecuador or Brazil, which have less strict visa laws. From there, they follow a land route north. Ecuador, Brazil, Colombia, Panama, Central America, Mexico. Border crossing. The Darien Gap crossing between Colombia and Panama is particularly dangerous. Since 2015, Panama has recorded over 100,000 extracontinental migrants from at least 60 African and Asian countries using the Darien Gap to reach the United States or Canada. In 2017 and 2018, most migrants in the region came from Asia, with Indian, Nepalese, Bangladeshi, and Cameroonian nationals being the most common. They use various means of transport, buses, boats, and sections on foot. Arrival in Mexico. In Mexico, they prepare to cross the border with the United States. Some try to cross clandestinely by truck on foot, by rail, or even through tunnels. Alternative route through Canada. Recently, many consider the route through Canada to be faster and safer. They obtain student visas for Canada and then try to cross the border into the United States. Support networks. Migrants often travel in small groups with compatriots who speak the same language. They have the support of established community networks in the United States, especially the Patel community. This process involves great risks and dangers for migrants, including the possibility of deportation or situations that put their lives at risk. What role do smuggling networks play in Indian migration? Smuggling networks play a crucial role in Indian migration to the United States, organizing the journey. They offer door-to-door services from India to the US. They charge high fees, which can exceed $50,000 per person, routes and logistics. They organize flights to South American countries such as Ecuador or Brazil. They guide migrants along land routes through Central America and Mexico. They facilitate crossing dangerous borders such as the Darien Gap structure and operation. They start with travel agents in India who subcontract parts of the journey. They collaborate with associated criminal groups in Latin America, support during the journey. Migrants travel in small groups with compatriots who speak the same language. They provide guides and assistance throughout the journey, growth and expansion. They benefit from the call effect. When successful migrants recommend their services, they attract more migrants as their operations grow. These networks facilitate irregular migration, but they also expose migrants to great risks and dangers during the journey. How does the legal asylum process affect the daily lives of Indian migrants? The legal asylum process significantly affects the daily lives of Indian migrants in several ways. Legal uncertainty. Long wait times for hearings with immigration judges create constant uncertainty about their future. The risk of deportation is a permanent concern, especially for undocumented immigrants. Work limitations. During the process, many face restrictions on working legally. They often have to accept lower skilled jobs, even if they had professional careers in India. Access to services. They experience difficulties in accessing health services, education, and other public services due to their uncertain immigration status. Psychological stress. The asylum process generates a high level of stress and anxiety that affects their psychological well-being. Family separation and adaptation challenges can lead to mental health problems. Barriers to integration. Uncertain legal status makes it difficult to fully integrate into American society. They may face discrimination and difficulties in establishing lasting social relationships. Economic difficulties. Legal costs associated with the asylum process can create a significant financial burden. Employment limitations often result in economic hardship and poor living conditions. Mobility restrictions. During the process, they may have limitations on traveling outside the country, affecting their freedom of movement. These factors combined make the daily life of Indian immigrants in the asylum process marked by instability and uncertainty, affecting their quality of life and future prospects. Additional information about crossing from Canada. Recent months have seen a significant increase in asylum seekers traveling northward through the United States to Canada, often enduring hazardous weather conditions. Images of migrants from Africa and the Middle East crossing snow-covered terrains and icy rivers have sparked widespread concern among Canadian refugee advocates and politicians. Unauthorized border crossings into Canada have risen sharply, with a 230% increase in Quebec in January 2017 compared to the previous year. Experts attribute this trend partly to the Trump administration's stringent immigration policies, which may be prompting asylum seekers to head further north. Many migrants enter Canada illegally to bypass the Canada-US Safe Third Country Agreement, STCA. Signed in 2002, the STCA requires asylum seekers to claim protection in the first country they enter, except in certain cases. Although the treaty was designed to streamline asylum processing, it has inadvertently encouraged illegal crossings to avoid rejection at official ports of entry. In response to the surge in crossings, some Canadian lawmakers advocate closing this loophole and deporting unauthorized entrants back to the United States. Conversely, refugee advocates argue that the US is no longer a safe haven for asylum seekers, urging Canada to suspend the agreement. Under the treaty, Canadian and US officials at border ports of entry must return asylum seekers to the country of first presence, with exceptions for asylum seekers with a family member in the secondary country, unaccompanied children, individuals with valid travel documents, and those permitted entry on public interest grounds. Even when an asylum seeker qualifies for an exception, he or she must also meet Canadian or US admissibility standards to be permitted entry. What impact does discrimination in India have on the mindset of immigrants? Discrimination in India has a significant impact on the mindset of Indian immigrants. Although some Indian migrants go to the US for economic reasons, many are fleeing persecution, says Deepak Ahluwalia, an immigration lawyer who has represented Indian citizens in Texas and California. These range from Muslims, Christians, or low-caste Hindus to members of the LGBT community who fear violence from extreme Hindu nationalists, as well as supporters of secessionist movements and farmers from the Punjab region, which has been shaken by protests since 2020. The living conditions of many of these people have deteriorated in recent years, according to international observers. Internalization of stereotypes. Many immigrants internalize the stereotypes and prejudices associated with their ethnic origin or caste. This can lead to low self-esteem and feelings of inferiority. Identity conflict. Immigrants may experience ambivalence in their cultural identity. On the one hand, they may reject discriminatory representations of their culture, but on the other, they may partially identify with them. Fear of discrimination. The fear of discrimination in the host country can lead to anxiety and stress. This can lead some immigrants to hide aspects of their cultural identity, seeking acceptance. Some immigrants may try to assimilate quickly into the host country's culture to avoid discrimination. This may result in a partial loss of their original cultural identity. Increased awareness of discrimination. Prior experience of discrimination in India may make immigrants more sensitive and aware of discrimination in other contexts. Resilience and empowerment. Some immigrants develop greater resilience in the face of discrimination and become empowered to stand up for their rights. This complex and often contradictory mindset reflects the difficulties Indian immigrants face in navigating their cultural identity and adapting to a new society. In a future video, we will analyze the distribution of Indian citizen groups across the US territory. Subscribe to our channel and leave us a like to be notified of this publication. We are waiting for your visit at our next video. Thank you.